Hey everybody, today we are going to look at a very fun hand where my good friend Andrew Robl gets into a quads versus quads confrontation against Toby Lewis. Let's get into the action.
Oh, he's definitely going to raise. I mean, how can you not raise?
He's going to get ping-ponged here by Team Great Britain.
Yeah, as you said.
First trick, it bluffs him. Then Lewis stuffs him.
That was good.
He just calls here.
That's
a little shocking.
That's
I would have
sure.
raised. I would have raised. It's funny. I would have raised and folded to a re-raise. That's the sick thing.
Now Timoshenko's going to come in this pot
For
with
sure.
two deuces.
We are at the PartyPoker World Open, and this table of players is going to split and fight for about $500,000 with $200,000 up top. It starts with Toby Lewis on the button. He raises to $8,000 at 2K, 4K with pocket queens. They are playing a little over 200K deep, something in the 250K range. Andrew Robl here in the small blind with pocket nines has a decision. I think that today he would 3-bet this hand, although in a tournament structure, it gets a little bit dicey. The fact of the matter is he's facing the button open. He's got pocket nines in the small blind. It's a really good hand, and he needs to be 3-betting. Now, if he faces a 4-bet, it starts to become a tough spot, but I think he should deal with that when he gets there. I'm not going to fault Andrew too much for this. This is back when he was just a little baby. Yevgeniy Timoshenko calls in the big blind with pocket deuces, and we head to a very exciting flop.
All three players have pairs. That's something you don't see very often. Pre-flop.
Button in the blinds.
Oh! It's come
Quads, full
queen,
house.
nine.
Oh my God.
Goodbye, Andrew Robl.
Wow.
It's nice having you here, but
0%.
It's such a hard place to
Some
be drawing
days-
your
It's
head
so
from,
hard
isn't
to
it?
flop a full house and be 0%. It's really, really
Wow.
hard. They're both trying to figure out how can I get all the money in. And by the way, Lewis is thinking he has to be bluffing, right? Because when you have quads, you have all cards locked up.
Robl leads right out and bets a full house.
Playing it like,
Well, that's something I would never do in this spot to a pre-flop raiser.
and look at it.
Continue to throw the rope.
These guys are just incredible.
Well,
I mean,
Well,
he's
that
done
just
that
shows
so it doesn't look, I mean, what are they
he
thinking?
raised?
Yeah, why do you raise
you.
there?
Well, he's raised here.
I think this is a bad play, but amazingly, it's going to be the perfect play.
We head to the queen, queen, nine rainbow flop. Andrew Robl flops a full house. Toby Lewis flops quad queens. Andrew cannot win this hand unless he somehow magically bluffs Toby off the best hand. But he does like his hand sitting here in the small line with pocket nines, and he actually decides to lead out 18,000 into 42,000. I don't mind this play. I would tend to just check my full range and figure out what to do after the button bets. But it might be a situation where he feels like if he bets here with pocket nines, he's going to get a lot of hands to call that might not have bets, like some ace high hands, some king jack, king 10 hands that might have decided to take a free card. He might get called by a hand like pocket sevens that was not going to bet itself. And of course, he could get raised. I don't mind this lead. I would have checked. Andrew bets 18K. Yevgeniy folds his deuces prudently, and it gets over to Toby Lewis, who decides to raise right away to 42,000. Now, I would not do this in today's games. You tend to, when you have the board completely crushed, want to play slower and keep your opponent bluffing. When he holds all the queens, it's very likely that Andrew either has a hand like ace nine that he's trying to play kind of pop protection-y, or some kind of semi-bluff, and he would like Andrew to keep bluffing. So I would just call here. The fact of the matter is, back then, there was a lot of click wars, which is what we call it online, when somebody bets an amount, you click back a min raise, and they click it back, and you get like 5 bets in on the flop with all min raises or so.
On the flop, Ivy's still the leader with that queen 8 suited. 80,000 is the bet.
And look at this. Re-raise by Jackson.
Wow.
A re-raise.
Well, there you are.
Nobody connected with that flop, and here they are, raise, re-raise, re-raise.
Nice.
Oh my goodness, Jackson is re-raising. I don't see how he can possibly continue in this hand. Everything Paul Jackson has done.
All in.
What?
That's why we're here and they're there.
That doesn't happen these days anymore because it's so not theoretically sound. Actually, it's not as unsound as you may think. But anyway, it doesn't happen these days very often. I think back then, what Toby Lewis is thinking is Andrew's a really aggressive player. And by raising here small, whatever Andrew has, he obviously is going to have some connection with the board most of the time. Toby probably feels he'll continue in some way. He might even 3-bet the flop with a hand like Jack 8. Again, both these plays I wouldn't make. I don't mind either of them.
He's got the only hand he's going to continue to play. Nine's full. Robl is just very happy
Yep.
that the guy's raised him.
But he's going to probably call because in the end you think if he has a queen, he'll bet the turn. No problem. So he's just going to call.
I got to tell
Am
you.
I right? He just called. Yeah, in the end, because it's too big a hand. I think Robl's played it right.
Both players are liable to not even get all their chips in there. They're going to try to out-slow play each other.
Now, Andrew facing this raise, it's obviously not going to be folding. I think he has a close decision between calling and raising. If he's up against a queen, it's very likely that they're going to get all the money in, but it's very likely they're going to get all the money in later anyway. So I do like his decision to just call. The other option, of course, is, he can click it back, get called by a hand like King Jack, which might then bluff later, which I think back in this day does work out very well on average. But yeah, I think I like his just call here overall.
Wouldn't shock me if it goes check on the turn.
Well, I think what's clear is that both these players actually think the other guy has nothing. And they're trying to
right.
That's their positive. I mean, is it
Robles is hoping that Lewis has a queen. That's what he's hoping for, but he doesn't feel it in his bones yet. So he's
because there is a level here among these young guys on that paired board to the raise that Robles trying to represent a lead with air, and Lewis is trying to represent the pre-flop raiser raising him with air.
Yep, and I think given the way the hand's gone, Toby has to fire like 50 or something right here.
Well, I just can't believe he's betting this hand. In case your opponent's got a straight draw, why would you want to shut him out?
Robles is thinking Christmas time, but it's not Christmas time. It's Cole in the stockings time. I stole a phrase out of your book. That was you, Jesse. That was you. I can't.
Now we head to the turn, which is the 5 of spades. It brings a backdoor flush draw. Not that that matters to either of these two players with their hands. And Andrew checks over to the flop raiser and Toby Lewis, who fires out a bet of 63,000 into 108,000. I think that Toby could consider checking back here. Again, he crushes this board, and it's very possible that Andrew would have led with a hand like Jack 10, King 10, King Jack, Jack 8, and then floated out of position against this flop raise. So Toby Lewis, by checking back, could induce a bluff on the river. The fact that he bets here, it says to me that he really believes a large part of Andrew's flop leading range is going to be hands like ace 9, king 9, maybe pocket 10s if he would have played it this way pre-flop, maybe even pocket 8s. Thinking back, this was a kind of play that people would make. They would think like, well, I don't really want to check call and give all these free cards. I probably have the best hand, I'll bet. Get some people to fold and take down the pot, or get people to call with worse, just be easier to play the hand. So Lewis is definitely putting Robl on a hand like ace 9, king 9, and I don't mind the bet. Now, Andrew being out of position now, there's going to be less than pot remaining on the river, and so I think he definitely needs to just call here.
Robl obviously trying to decide. The bet's 60. Do you go all in? Do you raise? Do you just check and lead the river? What's the best way? What does he think Lewis has here? What would Lewis play like this? Obviously, a queen.
I'm in shock he raised him on the flop. I mean, that's the first thing.
He's still just flat calling.
Well, they're just calling here.
This is clearly the right play. If you are up against a queen, you're going to get all in on basically every river. And if you are up against a hand like King Jack, you certainly don't want to shove and have him fold his 0% equity.
Right.
Oh, my God.
That was sick.
Can you believe this?
Oh, my Lord. That is so
over quads.
sick. I can't believe that.
It's kind of unfair.
Oh, my Lord. So now he's like,
Oh, my God.
he's like, wow, my opponent can't have queen 9. Hopefully he has queen 5, or
Well, Toby must be thinking, geez, what can this guy have to be calling with all this way?
Now here's where things get interesting again. The river 9 of clubs hits. Andrew thinks to himself, it's good to see you. And he decides to lead. Now, this is a spot where the way that the hand's played, Toby is saying he has a queen. Andrew is saying he has showdown value. So he's saying he has a hand like 9x. He's saying he has a hand like pocket 10s. Maybe he has a queen himself. Obviously, he could have a slow play like this, or he can have an underpair, perhaps. Maybe he could have some kind of like King Jack and really not be believing Toby Lewis. But I think for the most part, he's got the bluff catcher range, which has some slow plays. And Toby Lewis has queens full or a bluff. And in cases like this, you would usually want to check and let your opponent bluff. However, I think this is a really interesting decision by Andrew, and I think there's merit to it. So if we break this down logically, if Toby Lewis has a queen, the money's going in. It doesn't matter what we do. And so the question is, what should we do if Toby Lewis does not have a queen? If he doesn't have a queen, I think he's very often going to have a hand like King Jack, Jack 8, all of the gut shots I've been talking about throughout this video. And what's interesting is, you know, Andrew's shove doesn't make a lot of sense. If he has a queen, would he shove? Maybe, maybe not. It's a pretty weird shove to make if you do have a queen. And I could see Toby getting very skeptical and suspicious of this river shove. What would make sense potentially for Andrew to have is a hand like pocket eights that, you know, let out to try to clear the field and thinking you might have the best hand, make the hand easier to play. Didn't believe Toby Lewis on the flop and called with his eights. Didn't believe him again on the turn. Again, this is back in the day when we were non-believers. And then on this river now gets counterfeited and just has 8 high and feels like he needs to bluff. The question is, when Toby has a hand like King Jack, are we going to make more money by checking or by betting? And I think there's an argument to be had on either side. I think it's relatively unlikely that Lewis is going to call with king high against the shove, but I also think it's relatively unlikely he's going to bluff jam. It's overwhelmingly likely he has a queen or a 9 at this point, and people generally don't like to try to fold people off of full houses. I think it's very possible that Toby would just check back at king high. I also think it's possible that he could call with it, although not super likely. It's really interesting and shows kind of the strong mind that he already had at what must be 21, 22, if I remember correctly. I think I like this play. I think I can get behind it, despite it not being really a thing that makes sense to me in theory.
No, me either. This is a first for me. 10 years of cards.
Well, he's moved all in and quickly called and let Robl turn up his hand first. 4 nines against 4 queens. Look at Timoshenko's face.
Look at Toby Lewis.
Look at Timoshenko. Look at Timoshenko. Look at Timoshenko. Look at Timoshenko.
Now, in this case, Toby Lewis got all the money because it was quads versus quads, but it is important to think about how you play your huge hands. Do you want to fast play on the flop like Toby Lewis did? Do you want to slow play and induce bluffs from your opponent? It really depends on the board texture, the makeup of the pre-flop ranges, and the makeup of the flop ranges, as well as kind of probably more than anything, your read on your opponent and how they're going to react. I hope you enjoyed this one. I only really enjoyed watching Andrew get crushed here because I know that this was the way that he set up being due for the career that he's had since that point. But generally, I prefer not to watch my friends lose.
Look at Timoshenko.
I'll see you in the next video. Take care and good luck.